So how do we create change? Well, it's a question I've been asking my whole life. And I started off talking about food and health with my mom and dad real early. My dad grew up in the heart of the American food industry, and at the age of 5, he's taken me through supermarkets, and we're reading ingredient labels, and he's telling me what the heck these chemicals are and what they do in the body. So I knew about blood sugar spikes by the time I was in first grade, and my friends in school are learning about that C comes after B, and I'm like, thinking about kind of other stuff. But that wasn't always good for my social life. See, I was also a passionate vegetarian. I believed that animals were my friends, and I didn't want to eat my friends. I believed that my body was never meant to be a graveyard. I believed that it was morally wrong to kill animals for food, and I intended to tell the world about it. So when I was in second grade, I became particularly passionate. I decided the time had come to speak up in the schoolyard, and I would go around at lunchtime, and my friends with their Star Wars and Cabbage Patch doll lunch boxes, I would open them up, kind of like the food police, I guess, and I would give them a piece of my mind. And I thought I was, doing right for the planet and the animals and all, but I don't know that I was doing right for my social life. So one day, I got in a fist fight with my friend Jeremy, and he had a roast beef sandwich, and I had told him the meat was murderer and that he was a murderer. He didn't like that. Before long, his roast beef sandwich was in the garbage, and I was in the principal's office. And I got to thinking about how we influence people and how we fail to influence people. And I did notice a certain irony that I was advocating compassion while I was getting in a fist fight with my friend. So, I shared this with my dad, and he was like, "Oh my God, what the heck have we raised here?" And in time, I went on a journey, and I began to explore. A new question emerged in me, which is, how do we actually create positive impact? And how do we build a truly more compassionate world? And I came to hear the words of Martin Luther King. He said to us, "You have no moral authority with those who can feel your underlying contempt." When we judge people, when we pathologize people, we lose moral standing in that relationship. And so over the years, I deepened in that journey. And then I had kids. Or kids had us, I don't know which, but twins. And our twins were born 9 weeks prematurely. It's not that uncommon with twins, but ours were 9 weeks early, and they were 6 weeks in intensive care. We didn't know if they would live or die. It was, to this day, the most painful, heart-rending experience of my life, to hold my little baby while he turned blue. And, there's beeping machines all around. And I knew enough to know that the chemicals in that hospital were not all benign. And yet, what could we do? We were dependent on it for our kids to survive. And so we got them home, and they were pretty traumatized. And in time, it surfaced that they were on the autism spectrum. Twins. And, raising kids is hard enough. Raising twins is even harder. Raising autistic twins is kind of, orders of magnitude more challenging. And in their first 10 years, I never had real eye contact with either of my children. We just didn't do that. I had hoped that someday I would have this experience of like melting into my children's eyes and just bonding in infinite love together, but that wasn't to be for them and I. And then we discovered a program called Sunrise, S-O-N-R-I-S-E, which focuses on relationship building. So instead of trying to train autistic people to behave differently, you build connection with them. The idea is that they show you the door into their world, and then we can show them the door out into our world. And it's all about building relationship. And the notion is that autistic people are overwhelmed. They're actually highly intelligent, and they're overwhelmed with massive stimulation, and their brains don't know how to filter. So literally, and to this day, our children can hear, there's 4 conversations in the room. I'm talking to River, and he's also hearing all the others, and they're equally loud. So your brain is naturally listening to me and not listening to the fan or not hearing other sounds as much because you're focused on one thing. But for them, they take it all in and they get overwhelmed really quickly. So autistic people will often focus on the same repetitive behaviors over and over again to try to feel safe in an overwhelming world, to try to feel some comfort and some familiarity because the world can be so distressing and agitating for them. So one day River was doing that. He's chewing on a Barbie's foot. We're having time together and he's just sitting there just chewing on a Barbie foot, which was one of the things he loved to do at that time. And instead of worrying that there's probably plastic made in China in that Barbie foot and wondering what chemicals are leaching into his body, or wondering how my kid's ever going to have a dating life if he chews on Barbie feet all day long, and trying to yank it out of his mouth and getting in a fight with him, I pick up another Barbie across the room and I start chewing on her foot. At which point, for the first time in his life, River looks at me right in the eyes. And I could almost hear him thinking, his huge grin comes over his face, and I could almost hear him thinking, oh my God, there is intelligent life on this planet. So now we're like beaming in each other's eyes, and my heart's just melting, you know? It felt like an eternity. Then he gestures like this. Turns out his Barbie has 2 feet. River is inviting me to chew on the other foot of his Barbie. So now I come over, and we're like 3 inches apart, just beaming in each other's eyes, chewing on Barbie feet. And it was one of the happiest moments of my life, because it was a moment of first contact with my son. And I never would have got there if I worried about the plastic, the social life, the Barbies, if I thought it was my job to train my kid to behave differently. I got there because I joined him in his world. I found connection, and I brought my heart there to meet him there. And then he came back and met me. We had connection, and out of that connection, we built a new kind of relationship. And now to this day, we have eye contact regularly. Without Barbie feet, because he's kind of over that. He still has his challenges, his neurological diversity, and his ineffable joy. He has a childlike innocence at 18 that is absolutely extraordinary. When he smiles, the world shines. He's got such a big smile, and he's willing to, his sense of humor is just off the charts. And he has challenges that he has to work with, and we work with them together, because we're on the same team most of the time. I'll tell even another story that goes even deeper with this, and then I'm going to wrap it back, and I'm going to tell you how this relates to food. Okay. So around that same time, when he was like 10 years old, River had a lot of potty issues. It's very common with autism. And he had a sensory need to interact with his fecal material and to share that joy with his family. And his family didn't appreciate it very much. And he took it as a personal challenge to rub off our rough edges by teasing us with poop all over his hands. And so one day, I walk into the living room, and River has smeared brown mess all over the window. And it's rather smelly. And my initial instinct, which I had done dozens of times before in such a situation, was to grab him by the hand, or the wrist rather, not the hand, and drag him rather forcibly and rather roughly, because I wanted to let him know this was not okay, into the bathroom, and force his hand washing, usually holding with one hand, washing with the other, rather aggressively. Shout at him, let him know this wasn't cool, go back out, wash the window, feel so sorry for myself that I have to do this, then I've got so many better things to do with my day, and then complain about it for the rest of the day. But this day I decided to try something different. And I realized he's playing. And he's testing me. And I decided to do something different, so I drew a heart in the poop on the window. Guess what River does? He looks at me with that same smile he had when I chewed on the Barbie foot. Huge smile. He looks at me right in the eyes and he says, I'll go get cleaned up now. And he runs off to the bathroom and washes his hands. He has not smeared poop on windows since that day. Yeah. So I think River was trying to teach me something that I needed to learn. He was trying to teach me about unconditional love. He was trying to teach me about meeting people where they are and joining them in the beauty that is present. Because as disgusting as that habit was, it was also him expressing his creative spirit and his playfulness. And when I met him there, he was able to find perhaps more sanitary ways to express his spirit and playfulness. But I had to get the lesson first. So you could say River was my guru that day, and with the Barbies. And here's how it connects to food. Here I am advocating for a healthier way of eating, and indicting the status quo, and spreading the word all over the world that what we eat matters, and that what we are doing is killing us, and that we can do better. Here I am trying to make change from one set of behaviors to a very different set of behaviors. How effective will I be if my tone is the equivalent of dragging somebody by the wrist, roughly and aggressively and forcibly washing their hands, throwing my friend's beef sandwich in the garbage? Not very effective. But if we can learn to align with the good and the dignity and the longing for health and the purpose and the spirit and the joy in other human beings, then we gain traction in that relationship. Then we become a partner to what they want for their lives. Then we become an ally to their purpose. Because nobody likes to have dogma shoved down their throats. Nobody likes to be in a power struggle and to lose. Nobody likes, I told you so. But at the end of the day, we can create more change when we work with people's natural desire to survive. And we won't reach everybody. I think we figured that out, right? There are some people that are set in their way. Sometimes pain pushes, sometimes vision pulls. Some people are not willing to change unless they are in a certain degree of pain, and sometimes they won't even change then. But you know what? You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink, right? Similarly with humans, we can share the truth, we can share the love, and at the end of the day, we can share who we are. And that embodiment, that expression of our purpose and our joy and our vitality is the most powerful form of leadership there is. Now let's suppose you want to go further. Let's suppose you want some strategies for how to actually influence people. How many of you have people that don't eat quite the way you'd like them to? Or don't live quite the way you'd like them to? Let's suppose you want to influence those people in a good way. So what are some of the top tips? Okay, one thing, if you want to give somebody a resource, like a DVD or a book, try sticking a Post-it note on there that says, I thought of you on page 314. I thought of you at 1731. There's a great spot on this DVD. Your odds of them opening that book or watching that DVD just quintupled. And I bet you they go straight to that page. But if it's a good page, they'll keep going because they want to know what made you think of them, right? It's personal then. It's connected to them. Another tip, share healthy food. The best doorway to someone's mind is often their stomach. So give the gift of healthy food. Now, some people may not like it because some of the stuff that we healthy eaters eat isn't always popular with folks whose taste buds have been overwhelmed with an overdose of sugar and chemicals and processed stuff. It can take some time to learn to love foods that love us back. But you get to be a part of that solution when you share healthy foods at parties, at potlucks. I have a friend who was, he and his girlfriend were going to a potluck party, and they wanted to bring something, but they were out of time. They hadn't prepared. So they stopped at Whole Foods. And she wanted to bring a vegan cake. She thought that everyone would like that. And he was like, no, cake isn't really what I want to bring. And he wanted to bring berries, and like a berry platter. And they got in a real fight about it, like for real, like shouting in the Whole Foods. And they ended up deciding to bring both, and they took a bet on which one would be consumed at the end of the party more. Well, she got there first, and she sticks the cake right in the middle where there was a big spot, right in the middle of the food table. There was just a little corner for the berries that was left, so he put them there. And he was like, he admitted to me later that as sure as he was on the outside that he was going to win, on the inside he really thought he was going to lose and the cake would win. Well, guess what? At the end of the party, half the cake remained, the berries were gone. To make matters more dramatic, someone had left a note on the berry tray It said, thank you for being so thoughtful to bring something healthy. So there is a point where we sell ourselves and our communities short, sometimes. There is a point where we think of ourselves as more hedonistic and less thoughtful and conscious than maybe we really are. And so sharing food is a wonderful step. You can also create meal share programs. If you have other people in your life that maybe also want to eat healthy, share food with each other. You can do it formal or you can do it casual. But I think that one of the real epidemics of modern times is loneliness, isolation, a feeling of separation. And a lot of people fear that healthy food will intensify that. That if they really choose to go plant-based or give up sugar or whatever else, they will lose connection with people in their lives. And what I want to say is that it can actually bring you more connection with people who are aligned with you around a shared purpose when you create that. So some people I know, like on Monday, Susan brings lunch for her peers, and on Wendy does, and they share healthy food that way. Other people make extra soup and give it to the neighbors. A lot of people cook big quantities on the weekend, and then they freeze food and have it all week long. Make little to-go containers for lunches. Have them prepped the night before so you don't have to scrounge or go out in the middle of the day. There are so many steps you can take to build connection and to create healthy habits that set you up for success. For so many people, the problem isn't knowing what to do, it's doing what they know. So I'm passionate about that, and that's why in 31-Day Food Revolution, I'm choosing to focus, every chapter ends with action steps you can take that you can apply in your life to get results. Now you may wonder why 31 days. Is it because there's some mystical, magical formula that 31 days is how long it takes to change life? Well, yeah, there's a lot of research that says it takes about a month to enshrine a new habit. But I was also having fun with it. Because in the long run, I say 31 steps to health will bring you more satisfaction and more pleasure even than 31 flavors of ice cream.